Hello, this is Rocky Marciano. When I was heavyweight champion of the world, they called me the Brockton Blockbuster. You find out why.
Welcome to the Rocky Marciano Archives, a channel dedicated to the life and career of the immortal champion. In this episode, we look in some detail at Rocky's amateur victories in the Lowell Golden Gloves tourney of 1948. Again, this is taken from the Archive's own John Cameron's biography on the immortal champion, Redemption, The Life of Rocky Marciano, Volume 1, 1923 through 1949, available on Amazon. We hope you get something out of this. The Massachusetts Golden Gloves Amateur Championship tourney held in Lowell between December 30th, 1947 and February 9th, 1948 held a great prize. Not just the bragging rights of being the best at your weight in the state that first felt the footfalls of the Pilgrim Fathers, but more than this, the winners would also earn the rights to represent Massachusetts in the New England Tournament of Champions, in which the winners from this night would take on the corresponding holders from New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine, thus crowning the overall champions of New England before moving on to the national finals held in New York. The venue, which had been chosen to house the bouts, seemed a fitting site, for the building, constructed in the 1930s, was dedicated to the American veterans who served their country, decorating the exterior walls the names of famous generals and battles in which America made her mark. One can only imagine how the combatants in the skirmishes within felt as they entered this building surrounded by the names of such famous warriors. On the 19th of January, none other than former Marciano conqueror Bob Gerard found himself back in the Lowell ring. He had competed here the previous year, making it all the way to the final, where he had lost to one Joe Brown. This year, high expectations were laid upon his broad shoulders. Perhaps this proved to be too much for him, as he was unceremoniously knocked out of the competition by Dan Solomont in the opening stages. Whilst Gerard slunk home, his conqueror would have to get past the Brockton fighter himself, if he wished to progress any further. Rocky's inclusion in the tournament was entirely down to one man, Jim McMullen, who in his role as the director of boxing for the Lowell Sun Charities Golden Gloves was the key voice in who made it into the championship. There was one fighter, though, who definitely would make it. His name was Charlie Mortimer, and he was the protege of none other than McMullen himself. However, through a form of nepotism, Mortimer would not be amongst those in the preliminaries, but instead would be entered straight into the last four. It would be up to the rest of the boys to earn their shot at him. Yet this brought about its own problem. Due to the complexities of the competition, there would be only 3 heavyweights who could make it through to the finals. McMullen needed a 4th, or his fighter would be excluded. To this end, the director of the Sun Charities show found himself in Bob Gerard's neck of the woods, Lynn, Massachusetts, sometime in January, to watch an unnamed yet, at least at the time, heralded heavyweight compete. McMullen was there with the singular intention of getting this unknown fighter to take part in the closing stages of the Lowell State Championship. This entire episode is rather shady, however, for it was not just the name of the boxer which has been lost. The exact venue and even date have also vanished from memory, or are at least unavailable to this archivist. Had it not been for the brief recollections of McMullen himself, published in the Lowell Sun in 1966, when he recalled to journalist Frank Dyer his reasons for being in Lynn, the whole affair would have been lost. This heavyweight, a big redhead, had a pretty good reputation, and the word was that he was knocking guys into the parquet seats. So I went down to Lynn to get a look at him, McMullen recalled. He ends up fighting a tough-looking kid from Brockton, and for about 2 rounds, this redhead caught more bombs than you could imagine. Finally, the kid from Brockton caught him with a right and lifted him about a foot off the canvas, knocked him cold. After the fight, I got the kid from Brockton to box in the Golden Gloves. Thus it was that on the wintry evening of Monday, February 2nd, the future Rocky Marciano made his debut in Lowell, a city that, although initially as cold as the weather swirling around the auditorium, would eventually come to embrace him. The late Frank Sargent, who covered the show for the local Lowell Sun, described his initial appearance thus. Up from Brockton came Rocky Marciano, a heavyweight with a lot of dynamite in his right glove. This boy slugged it out with Dan Solomont of Seekonk, R.I., in the first 2 minutes of the initial chapter, and then caught his foe with a right to the jaw which caused the Rhode Islander to go into a lengthy slumber. The compelling photograph which accompanied the article shows the hapless Solomont falling forward with arms spread wide as if attempting flight. All around him is a cloak of dark emptiness. Rocky had already walked away, as if he knew his foe was never going to rise before the count reached 10. Yet despite this conclusive victory, Rocky was not the star of the show. That honor belonged to the aforementioned Charlie Chuck Mortimer, a clean-shaven 19-year-old from Lowell who looked more like a movie star or model than a fighter. McMullen's protege seemed, at least on the surface, to have the potential to win the tourney, especially with Girard out of the way. There were some whispers, however, that all was not strictly above board in the Girard decision, but there is little proof of this. Yet the publicity machine turned quick for Mortimer now, thanks in no small part to his win that selfsame evening, when he scored his own first-round victory over an unfortunate Joe West, therefore being hailed as the hitter of the tournament. Chuck Mortimer, who simply can't wait for the call to come out fighting, will finally get his chance. He'll positively appear against Rocky Marciano when the heavyweight open contenders close the card. Practically every sports fan in Greater Lowell is anxious to ascertain how hard this highly touted boy can hit. So continued journalist Frank Sargent, referring to Mortimer, not Marciano. It seemed so far the script had run to plan ensuring a local boy was in the finale of the tournament the following Monday. So for McMullen, the local press, and the 4,000 spectators who crammed into the Memorial Auditorium, they would have to wait just a little while longer to see if their highly touted boy could blast out this unknown Brockton fighter, who was also able, they had to at least acknowledge, hit a bit himself. The night of February 9th was buzzing. A palpable sense of excitement surrounded the entire venue as a capacity crowd were on hand to witness this highly anticipated bout between their hometown boy versus the upstart who was trying to deny him a place in the forthcoming Tournament of Champions a mere fortnight later. For the first 2 rounds, the southpaw style of Mortimer ruled the day. He peppered the slightly heavier Marciano with shots from every angle, but to the surprise of the crowd, this Brockton boy would not go down. Either Charlie had lost his fabled power, or his opponent was far tougher than they had initially given him credit for. At least, most agreed, they were getting their money's worth this evening. They were going to witness their boy-crowned champion. Sure, Marciano had fought back aggressively in the first 2 stanzas, but all felt that the sharper shots had come from Mortimer. Their initial feelings that Charlie was the superior fighter seemed confirmed in the opening stages of the closing 3rd round. The Brocktonian appeared to wilt and was forced back against the ropes. Then, to the astonishment of all present, as recorded in the Lowell Sun, Rocky came to life with startling suddenness in 1 minute 20 seconds of the 3rd. Stepping inside Mortimer's guard whilst coming off the ropes to deliver a roof-raising right uppercut that put Mortimer face down until his seconds hustled in to roll him over. The swiftness of Rocky's destructive power could no longer be denied. Those observers that evening would one day rate this right uppercut as the hardest punch ever thrown in a Lowell ring. In recognition of his win, recorded the Brockton Daily Enterprise, Marciano was awarded a golden glove with a ruby, which he promptly gave to Barbara upon his return home as an engagement gift, a gold medal appropriately inscribed, and a gold-colored bathrobe proclaiming himself the heavyweight king of the tourney. Thus it was this Brockton heavyweight who carried the hopes of Massachusetts into the New England finals, not the original now abandoned prospect who lay prostrate on the canvas. Unusually, though, Mortimer's adoring crowd did not switch their allegiance, as it should be, to his conqueror. In fact, Marciano was viewed as a detestable character who had broken every rule in the ring and, in the words of columnist Frank Sargent, used everything but his teeth on his foes, for he has appeared in 2 fights, and both times his opponent has wound up on the horizontal end of a haymaker. The crowd boos his apparent use of elbows, thumbs, and head. This would be a charge that would follow Rocky into the professional ranks, where he would defend his seemingly roughhouse tactics, thus, "You can't lose a decision if your opponent is flat on his face." This disparaging of the victor again seemed to stem from McMullen, who was left with a bitter taste in his mouth over the defeat of his boy, leading him to comment later, "I didn't think too much of him. He seemed a little too cute. You'd hit him and he'd fake getting hurt. Then you'd relax and he'd slam you." The vitriol continued, as recorded by Sargent again. Although Rocco, whose name sounds more like an opera star's than a pugilist, will carry the colors of the state into battle against Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire, next week there will be a lot of Lowell fans rooting for his opponent, any opponent. It would only be a matter of time, however, before the vagaries of both the boxing public and those who reported it would be changed in his favor. McMullen's opinion would take far longer. Now, though, the fighter with the operatic name would leave his thoughts on it all to himself, concentrating on the upcoming New England Golden Gloves tourney that his victory had ensured. For the deposed Mortimer, however, this was to be his last bout. He would be quoted in later years as saying, "I had come off 12 straight wins. After the loss, I figured if you can't win them all, what the hell's the point?" So that was how the future heavyweight king blasted his way to his first championship. In later episodes, we will explore the next step in his amateur adventures as we continue to explore his remarkable life and career. Be sure to hit that notification button so you don't miss out as the journey continues. Until then, thank you for listening. We will see you down the road.
If you like this content, then hit the subscribe button. To really support this channel, consider joining for just over $1 a month and unlock ad-free members-only content. Every member will play a key part in revealing the real Rocky.
I just enjoyed combat. I just enjoyed the sport that I had learned so well, and I had practiced so much that when the bell rang, I did a job. I could concentrate on the opponent.
It was a great, great career for me. I'm proud and very happy to talk about it. Sometimes I wonder why I was such an aggressive man in the ring.